What do you think is important about women awakening in the moment?
I want to first say that women have always been the awakeners. That's the lineage I carry. You know, when you go back to the ancient times, the women were the high priestesses, the women were the warrior healers. And I think we are entering an age again where women are rising once again as the whistleblowers, because women are able to tap into our nervous systems in a way that men not necessarily. So our nervous systems are the whistleblowers, and I think the women are the amplifiers of that message that it's time to awaken.
Welcome to Women Awakening. I'm your host, Cynthia James, and every day I'm excited because I get to introduce you to fabulous women. Women who are game changers in the world, who've taken control of their lives and are here to make a difference, and then teach us that it's possible for us as well. I'm excited to be doing this, and I want you to know that you can subscribe, you can review us, it really helps us, and you can meet me at cynthiajames.net. I want to introduce you to my guest today. Her name is Pardis Mahdavi. I just want to read to you who she is because it's amazing. Pardis Mahdavi is an internationally recognized author, educator, and entrepreneur. She has published 7 nonfiction books and 2 edited volumes and earned her BA from Occidental College. Now she's got 2 master's degrees and a PhD from Columbia University. She focuses on human rights, migration, education policy, and social systems. And we will talk about AI Native University and the fact that she has a new book coming. Pardis, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor to be here.
Well, you're beautiful, and I'm so happy to see you. I want to know how you grew up. Where did you grow up?
Yeah, I often tell people I grew up caught between 2 worlds. I grew up on a bridge in many ways. So I'm Iranian-American, and that hyphen is pretty significant. I actually wrote a whole book called Hyphen because it's about hyphenated individuals. So many of us are these hyphenated. We're 2 cultures, multiple cultures in one. So my parents came here during the revolution in Iran of 1978, 79. And initially we were in Minnesota, and I know, of all places. And then in 1984, I came home from school one day, and there was a sign posted in front of the house, and it said, "Burn this house, terrorists live here." That was during Iran-Contra, Iran hostage crisis, and there was, a lot of anti-Iranian sentiment. So my father made the difficult decision to move from Minnesota to California. And we were considering, as we call it, Tehrangeles, Los Angeles, but my father instead chose San Diego because it reminded him more of the village where he grew up in Iran by the water. But my dad said something to me in that move, and I was only 6 years old at the time, Cynthia. My dad said, Pardis, people can take everything from you. They can take your belongings, they can take your home, they can even take your country. But the one thing no one can ever take from you is your education. Don't ever let them take your mind. And that is something that stayed with me my entire life. To this day, my father's words echo in my bones to this day.
Well, I believe in synchronicity. I was born in Minnesota.
No way, me too.
That's right.
That's crazy.
And I didn't know about what was happening with your culture, but, we were in red line districts and, but there was integration things going on. And my mother, like your father, said, I don't care what else you do, get educated.
You see, our stories are so intertwined.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you got all this education, but was human rights, did that come in because of what you had experienced as a child and what you saw in your culture?
I think for me growing up as an Iranian-American, my 2 countries were always at war. So, in the United States, I would hear people talking about Iran as this axis of evil, as this, barbarian, nation. And then I would, in Iran, see people burning American flags and chanting death to America. So if my 2 countries were at war with each other, what does that mean for someone who is Iran and America in one body?
Yes.
And that made me very much want to be kind of the translator, the bridge, the person who's translating one culture to the other, and mostly the person who is speaking for the voice of the people. Because while these two governments are indeed at war, and while these two governments have, the people of Iran, the hearts of the people are very similar to the hearts of the people of the United States. And everybody's human rights are important. And because of what had happened in Iran, because of the revolution, and then because a new regime was brought in, that we are right now, as we sit here today, Cynthia, the death toll is over 50,000 in the last month, just in the last month alone in Iran. Human rights are being violated on a daily basis. And this is a regime that has just been doing this now for decades, for my entire lifetime.
Right.
So I became very passionate about amplifying the voices of people whose voices are often not heard.
Wow. Well, I'm so grateful that we're talking about this, because I want to talk about the shift for the feminine when that revolution happened, because it changed the way in which you were treated, looked at, and voices taken away.
That's exactly right. And suddenly women's bodies became the battleground. So this was a regime, before the revolution, women in Iran were, the highest of fashion. They wore miniskirts. Women were, leadership, etc. The revolution, when the regime came to power, they came to power under a fabric of morality. They said, Iran has become West toxicated. It's become infatuated with the West. Women are trying to be, all these things. We need to take Iran back for Iranians. But their version of that was taking Iran to an imagined past where women were suppressed. That was a serious revision of history.
Right.
Because if you actually look at Persian culture, you look at the ancient, women.
Beautiful.
Were warriors. There is a long history of women warriors. And I actually wrote a book about this. It's called Book of Queens. And it tells the story of my grandmother, who was a horsewoman warrior. And she used to smuggle women from Iran to Afghanistan on horseback. She would smuggle women out of, various situations, sometimes domestic violence, other situations. She smuggled them from Iran to Afghanistan on horses by getting the horses drunk on homemade whiskey so they'd be calm at the border crossing. But these women created an all-female army in Afghanistan that had been fighting the Taliban for decades before even the War on Terror. And these women also trained the horses that then the United States military used to fight the Taliban during the War on Terror. So Book of Queens is the story of the Middle Eastern horsewomen who actually fought the War on Terror.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. And the lineage that you come from, of course you're a warrior. Of course you're dedicated to human rights. Right. And so I guess I just want to ask you, what's going on in the world today? I mean, what's happening in Iran is horrible, but it seems to be, spreading out across the world in terms of the way women are treated, and so what do you feel is your mission?
Yeah. I think my mission is to really help awaken the world to the systemic breakdown and to the very real structural violence that's taking place. So that systemic breakdown is happening at the level of the government, like the place in Iran, right? The government has completely fallen down on the job. There's no water, there's no, universities are being shut down, the banks are collapsing, infrastructure. I mean, that's a very egregious example. But even in this country, the systemic breakdown that I have had a front row seat to is education.
Yes.
And so in my career, I did my PhD, and then I went and I became a professor at Pomona College. My PhD is in medical anthropology. And I became a professor. So I was a professor for over a decade and rose the ranks at Pomona College, became department chair, dean of women. Then I became a dean at the University of Denver. Then I was a dean at Arizona State University. And then I was the provost of the University of Montana. Then I was the president of the University of Laverne. And I stepped down a year and a half ago to start my company, which we could talk about, my uni. But I had a front row seat to the way in which the education system also, in many, many ways, is maybe inadvertently silencing the voices of women and people who were maybe designed to be kept out of the elite hallways of the ivory tower, if you will.
Yes.
And that happens through what knowledge and textbooks are privileged and what knowledge and textbooks are put to the side. That also happens in the form of the way in which, education is or in this case is not meeting the needs of students. And so one of the things that I observed was students in a lot of pain. Students, severe mental health issues. On my watch, I awarded more posthumous degrees to students who had died by suicide than I cared to. And it was because the system had failed them. Students couldn't see a path out of the debt, rising tuition costs, and then degrees that they couldn't connect to the workforce.
Right.
So I always say to people, education shouldn't be a debt sentence. It shouldn't. It's supposed to be something that opens up avenues. What your mother said to you, what my father said. But right now we are in a very real crisis when it comes to education. It is becoming unaffordable. As we sit here today, 43 million Americans started college but dropped out. Many of them single moms like myself, couldn't finish because the way in which, unaffordable but unaccessible in terms of the life cycle of individuals. And many people are saying that it's not doing the kind of workforce development that they would want. Of course, women in this area, they suffer, right? Because they're not able, education is a ticket to self-determination.
Right.
And, I read a study recently that asked, what is the biggest regret that women have and men have? The biggest regret men have is not starting their own businesses. The biggest regret women reported was not finishing their education.
Right. My mother went back to school while she was trying to take care of us, but we were on welfare. And I mean, it was intense. And I just wanted to go back to something you said, because I've done work teaching science and spirituality at University School of Mines and doing stuff with Virginia Tech. But I also did a lot of community work. I would go into high schools, and the books that the kids in Black communities get are completely different than in the more affluent communities. And so what kept coming to me was, this is how you control people, is you take away their ability to be educated. And then so many of them, even if they finish, they're paying off debt for their entire life and can't get their homes.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's what I say. It's become a debt sentence.
Yes.
And, I would have students sleeping in their cars. The food pantry, we couldn't keep it stocked.
Right.
They're hungry. They're sleeping in their car. Their families had taken out a second and third mortgage on their home just so the kids could go to school. And they were harboring so much guilt. They were carrying the weight of this guilt of, their families had, taken out all the family fortune is right here. And that's a really serious burden for people to carry.
Well, it is, and it doesn't feel like you've got hope.
No.
So I want to know, what is AI University?
An AI native, AI enhanced university. Yeah. So I stepped down because I realized it had become unaffordable.
Yes.
And it was not enough the pathways to the workforce. And I realized that there were serious systemic and structural issues. It was not accessible. So it's not only that it wasn't affordable, but I'll give you a really good example. So when I was provost at the University of Montana, I had a lot of Native American students who had come from the reservations to take courses in Missoula, which is where the university was located. I remember I had this student who partway through their studies, their mother got sick. And they wanted to go back to the reservation to take care of their mother. But if they were to go back to the reservation after it snows, they would not be able to get back to Missoula.
Wow.
And so this student had to make the decision between, do I take care of my mom or do I finish my studies? And I said, we can't live like this anymore. There has to be a hybrid option. We have to have a way for this student to be able to continue their studies, because once they drop out, it's very difficult for them to get back on this track. So I began to realize that there were certain systemic breakdowns. So creating my uni was about creating an affordable, accessible, adaptive, accredited university.
Whoa, okay. All right.
Yeah.
And so, did you know how to do this?
Well, it turned out I knew more than I thought I did. I didn't think I did, but it turned out that, I had a really, because, for 25 years I'd been in the academy, and like I said, I had a front row seat to the dysfunction, to what was breaking down in the education system, to your point about who's getting what textbooks, who's able to have what degrees, what things are highlighted, and what kind of bodies of knowledge, what authors are highlighted, what authors are not highlighted. We both know what that's about. Exactly. And I also had been living with students and really sitting with them, often when they were in their darkest hours of mental health crises. And I had asked them, I would talk to them, what is it that you need? So I had a really deep understanding of what students needed. I had a really deep understanding of what the workforce needed. And I knew exactly how to build a curriculum. That was like my superpower. I know how to build and design a curriculum. So if I know how to fix this problem, and I knew that technology could be leveraged to make something affordable and accessible so that we could create hybrid degree programs around areas of knowledge that hadn't been privileged. So I'll give you an example. With my uni, one of the first areas that we're working on is food, and food in the African diaspora and African food culture, because that is not necessarily a body of knowledge that's come up to the top. So I knew what students needed, I knew what workforce needed, and I knew that there could be technological solutions to it. So I made it my mission to find the right partners. I was very, very lucky. I found somebody who is brilliant in terms of AI technology. And I said, okay, what we need is a learning management system and an academic, all this alphabet soup. I said, this is what we need. Can you build it? And they said, yeah, I think we can build this. And so we just set about making it our mission to create a university that meets the needs of students and workforce of today.
Wow. Well, that is so inspiring. I can't even tell you. But I have a question.
Yes.
In the middle of all of this you're doing, 7 nonfiction books.
That's right.
And novels. You got a new novel coming out?
Yep, I got 2. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So clearly you're not sleeping a lot because you're doing a lot. So tell me about the 2 novels.
So, obviously starting a university or being university president or dean, these are high stress jobs. Mm-hmm. And so people ask, what do you do for yourself? What do you do to take care of yourself? And for some people, and I do meditate and I do yoga, but for me, writing is my medicine. I would rather give up meals. I would rather give up vacations than writing. It's been something I've done ever since I was a child. Even when I was 5 years old, I was always pen and paper everywhere, writing stories my whole life. And so I find that writing helps me make sense of the world around me. And I also found, so I'm the eldest and only girl, and I had younger brothers and lots of, younger cousins. And they were growing up, they were in this same hyphen liminality that I was, to Iranian in America, to American in Iran, that caught between, and how do we make sense of a world that's post-certainty, if you will. And the way I would do it is I would tell them stories that would help them make sense of the world. And I would tell them stories that help them see themselves in the story. Because very few stories out there. You watch like Disney, and it's not really reflecting. No. Right. So I'm like, well, we're going to have to. So we'd be, I was a child in Minnesota. I'd be telling them stories of, heroes and heroines that were just like us. And as, time continued, and as I rose up the ranks, it was my way of making sense of the world around me. And so, when I would see something that was particularly painful or egregious, I've written a number of books on human trafficking, which to me is one of the most painful and egregious crimes of our time. And for me, the only way of making sense about it was to write about it and to amplify the voices of the women who are suffering.
Right.
So my novels are really about the broken education system. That's kind of, the campus is a character. And so I've written a young adult novel called Horsepower. And this is about 4 16-year-olds who are in this stuffy, elitist boarding school where everything's going wrong. There's this evil hive mind that's trying to numb out their brains. And it's set in Sedona. And these 4 kids go on horseback and discover a mystery school where they are able to tap into their intuitive powers and their healing powers. And they each learn, they have these elemental powers, and they learn through consciousness to tap into that and come back and save their classmates.
Wow. Okay, well, I want to read it and it hasn't even come back. Okay, I want you to tell people how to find you. Where can they get in touch with you and the work that you do?
Yeah, best way to find me is through my website. It's just www.pardismahdavi.com, or on Instagram. So you can follow me on Instagram. I'm very easy to find. And you can read any of my books, and look out for Horsepower. That'll be coming out very soon. That's the first in a 4-part young adult series. But yeah, I'm always excited to talk to people about anything from horses to education to human rights to awakening. So thank you.
Love that. Well, that leads me to my last question. I ask the same last question of every guest. Show is called Women Awakening. What do you think is important about women awakening in the moment?
I want to first say that women have always been the awakeners. That's the lineage I carry. You know, when you go back to the ancient times, the women were the high priestesses. The women were the warrior healers. And I think we are entering an age again where women are rising once again as the whistleblowers, because women are able to tap into our nervous systems in a way that men not necessarily. So our nervous systems are the whistleblowers, and I think the women are the amplifiers of that message that it's time to awaken.
Well, thank you. Couldn't have said it better.
Thank you.
So grateful that you've been here. You're powerful and you're beautiful, and looking forward to reading your novels.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor to be here on your show. Thank you, Cynthia.
Okay, ladies. I mean, awe-inspiring, right? I'm so excited that you got to be here, and I hope this ignited something within you to find out who's the warrior in you, who wants to emerge, who wants to bring her gifts. I hope this resonated with you. Please subscribe, review us, visit me at cynthiajames.net, and please remember, you are powerful, dynamic, mighty, unrepeatable. I'll see you next time.